Slowhands Rock Talk Show.
But Mark, thank you so much for making a little bit of time out of your afternoon to come onto the podcast and speak to myself about all things music. As I just said, we'll speak about music for yourself, we'll speak about your career and what you've got going on just now and what we expect from you in the future as well. But before we actually get started, how are you actually doing today? Today's episode is sponsored by Drumport. Drumport are known as a distributor for high-quality musical instruments, including their innovative Stomp Tech product line. A must-have for all musicians looking to expand their sound whilst keeping full control of it. I have mine here. Make sure you check out Drumport at www.drumport.de and get your own today. Now back to the video.
I'm good. Yeah, we just had Halloween here where I live in New Jersey, right outside New York City. It's a big holiday, biggest holiday for me. And it was great, man. We had a really good Halloween.
Where are you dressed up?
I was a werewolf, yeah.
That's good. But what I'd like to do, Mark, I'll go back to the very beginning. Same thing that I do with all the other guests. I'll go back to the start. So where originally are you from?
New Jersey. Yeah, born and raised in New Jersey. Lived here my whole life. Grew up about 10 minutes outside New York City, but now I'm about 1 hour from New York City. But New Jersey, dude.
That's fine. And when you were growing up, were you exposed to music from a very young age? And if so, where did that come from? Was that parents or siblings?
Yeah. It was the 80s, when I was growing up. So I started playing guitar in 1986. I was a young kid. I was like 8 years old. My older brother was about 7 years older than me. So he was already in high school and he was listening to all the metal that was going on, the hard rock, classic rock, and heavy hardcore punk, and he'd come home with cassettes from school, that tape trading with his friends. And so that really started my fascination with music and metal. And, we were really into Slayer and old Metallica and Megadeth, and then Motley Crue and Led Zeppelin, all the stuff that was big in the 80s. And that really had a real lasting impression on me my whole life.
When you think back to that time, was there one particular album that you think changed your view on music? Yeah,
probably. I think the one record really was Slayer, Rain and Blood, man. I remember having the cassette of that, in like 1997. So I was probably like 10 years old at that time and just being scared shitless of that music and the cover of the record. And I think that really, the intensity of the music, the speed and everything, the guitar playing, that really always stuck with me. And still to this day, it's Slayer, Rain and Blood is like my favorite record of all time. And Slayer is one of my favorite bands of all time. So,
yeah, I think they're kind of similar because again, I was brought up in the 80s as well. And I'm maybe a little bit younger than yourself, but it was probably around 1990. I remember my friend came down to the house and he had a cassette tape, a copy that he'd got from somewhere, and it was of Master of Puppets, the album.
Okay.
And it's that thing. I think I was 10 years old and I had no idea what heavy metal music was or who Metallica was or that. And you put it on and it's like you don't understand it, but you know that it connects with something. That I like this. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like this. And it changes almost the path of your life because, fast forward 30 something years, I'm still in love with this music that I fell in love with back then.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially that era in the 80s, that was the greatest era for metal, where it really, it reached such a high pinnacle of musicianship and the production of the records and everything. So, still to this day, those records, Metallica, Master Puppets, and Justice for All, Anthrax, Among the Living, Spread and Disease, the big four, Megadeth, Rust in Peace and Peace Sells, all the Slayer records from that era, that was to me the pinnacle of thrash metal and heavy metal. So, people that were around during that era, like yourself and me, it stayed with us forever. Those are still.
I mean, there's still plenty of great heavy metal music being made to this very day, but there's something really special, I think. See, between 1985 and maybe 1995, maybe up to 2000.
Yeah.
That 15-year period, there's still great music being made today, but anything released then, it's still, you can put it against something today and it sounds just as good, if not better.
Yeah, well, that was the blueprint. To me, that's when the record companies had money to invest in the bands, and Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax, and I mean many other bands from that era too. Suicidal Tendencies is one of my favorites. Also, they put them in the studio with a proper budget, and you could have a lot of time to really focus on the music, and I think that's why the music was so good.
Yeah, even the wave of bands that came just after them. So see, like your Machine Head, your Pantera, these bands that ruled the 90s especially.
Yeah.
There's elements of Metallica and Slayer and all those bands. You know that they were influenced by them.
Yep, exactly. Well, again, that was the blueprint, the records and then all the bands that came after in the 90s were obviously very influenced and carried it. Pantera, in my opinion, they where Metallica changed their sound on the Black record and then everything after, Pantera basically took that Injustice for All style production and sound and ran with it, man, and took it to the next level. Yeah,
great. Do you remember what was the first professional concert that you ever attended?
Well, the first real, I'd say, like metal concert I ever saw was 1993, and I saw Sacred Reich, who's one of my favorite thrash metal bands, from the 80s. Should be put into that same bracket as the top thrash bands from that era. It was Sacred Reich, Crowbar, who's one of my favorite bands, and another band called Souls at Zero. They were on tour together, and that was the first metal show I ever saw. I was like 16, and it was at a club here in Jersey called Studio One, and it just blew my mind away, man. I got in a mosh pit, and stage dived, and changed my life. I remember I took a Doc Martin to the side of my head from some skinhead down, and I was like, man, this is awesome. I want to do this for the rest of my life, man.
That's the other thing when we're talking about music changing your life. But the other thing, and I say this to everybody, that everybody should experience a live concert at least once, almost regardless of the style. Doesn't matter who the band is. There's something magical about going to a live concert. And you could be having a shitty time in your life with your work, with whatever it might be. But for those 2 hours, you forget everything. You're in the moment. You've got however many people it is that are on the same page as you. Everybody is there for the music. It sounds very over the top, but it is like a magical experience.
Yeah. I mean, this style of music was meant to play live. I think it's all the bands that played metal even back in the day. You're always thinking about the mosh pit and the fans, and you're writing with the live show in mind. I know I am always when I write a song. So with that being said, the fans, you got to go see it live. It's definitely something that there's the record where you can sit down and listen to it and really enjoy the production.
Yep.
And then go and see like Slayer or Metallica live. There's the headbanging quality of the intensity of seeing it in person.
I think it's one of those styles of music that you actually feel it in your body when you go.
Yeah.
When a guitar riff kicks in or a drum pattern, you actually feel it in your bones. It's great. It's brilliant. But obviously you started playing the guitar when you were 8 years old, around 8 years old.
Yeah.
Why was it the guitar? Why was it not the bass or the drums or something else?
Yeah, I think the main reason why I really started playing guitar was Led Zeppelin. Honestly, Jimmy Page. Just I remember hearing the song Black Dog, and it just blew my mind away. That riff, And I don't know really. I mean, maybe I was attracted to how cool the guitar looked. It kind of looks like a freaking battle axe. You could whack someone over the head with it if you had to. but just the sound of it, and I never really had any interest to play any other instrument than just guitar. I just I've always had an obsession with the guitar.
Are you self-taught, or did you go to lessons to begin with?
I took a lot of lessons, especially in the beginning. I studied with a lot of different people that like went to Berkeley College and different places. So I definitely was schooled, but I definitely learned a lot on my own. And nowadays I just really do a lot of my own, searching for things that I want to learn nowadays. But if I find someone who I admire their playing, I still always try to get a lesson. And definitely it's still the best way to learn is one-on-one with a teacher.
I'm almost jealous nowadays, being the age that I'm at, you almost glorify the old days like they were better than today. But one thing I'm jealous of today is people wanting to learn the guitar. I got a guitar, I think it was around 1991, 92. And maybe similar to yourself, parents got this guitar, it's an expensive gift, so you're going to go to lessons and learn the basics at least. And of course, as you then start to get into it, you start trying to learn songs that, bands that you're listening to. And, back in the 90s, even it was difficult across in Scotland, it was difficult to get sheet music.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't read music, so you had to hope that if you could find it, that there was tablature is where to put your fingers. And then you look at it, if I was a kid nowadays, picking up the guitar for the first time, you've got access to YouTube, you've got every possible lesson by every possible guitarist in the world showing you how to play songs. If you want to learn to play, there's nothing to stop you from learning because it's so easy nowadays.
Yeah, well, that's why the level of musicianship right now is just at such a high level, because people have access on YouTube to all these different guitar lessons, and you can put in your favorite guitar player, and I'm sure they have some sort of lesson up online for free. Whereas when I was a kid, I had to take guitar lessons and once a week pay a teacher, and I would stick with that teacher for years. I mean, I think I stayed with one teacher probably for about 4 or 5 years straight. Yeah. Nowadays, it's all on YouTube, and it's a good thing because that information is out there, and people are now going to these unbelievable levels to learn how to play guitar very, very quickly. But also for teachers, I feel bad because you can now learn on YouTube for free, and basically guitar teaching is very difficult now to make a living. I used to teach guitar years ago. And I would do all right making a living doing it before I started touring. But nowadays it's very difficult because it's all up online for free.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, though, as you said there, that the level of guitar playing, the ability of some people is outstanding. But I sometimes think they're missing the other part of it, which is the feeling. There's one of my favourite guitarists is Marty Friedman he was in Megadeth. Mm. And there's no denying, technically, he is a very accomplished guitar player, but he's got so much feeling. And I sometimes think you can be as technical as you want, but if you don't have the feeling part, it doesn't interest me. I think you've got to kind of have both to make it really interesting to listen to.
Absolutely.
I think he's a very good example
yes.
of a guitarist that has both of those elements.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites, Marty. I mean, he's been a huge influence on me. And my favorite guitar record of all time is Megadeth, Rust in Peace.
Yeah.
Marty Friedman, is on that record. I love the way he plays with Dave Mustaine. But yeah, I mean, feeling is, I really try to, I think because I come from more of a hard rock background and the blues, and I grew up on Hendrix and Deep Purple and Zeppelin. I try to combine it. I try to, if I am playing fast, I also try to throw in a lot of more slow feeling, bendy licks also. So, I think a lot of that, when it comes to feeling and trying to also have that side to your playing, it's great to go back and listen to a lot of those older players from the 70s, like Ritchie Blackmore and Page and Eric Clapton and Hendrix. That's really where it all started.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously listened to your guitar playing it, and there's feel there, there's melody in the solos. It sounds a bit silly saying that, but you could just be a shredder but there's no melody in it. There's little hooks.
Yeah,
and that's what I think elevates the guitar solo to something that's memorable.
Thank you. I try, and I struggle with it because I do get out of hand with the shredding. It's to me, it's like playing fast on the guitar. It's like driving a fast car, and you can get out of control, and you got to remember, like, oh, yeah, I got to put a melody in here. I got to make it a little bit more simple. So I do try to keep that in mind, and I definitely am guilty of going a little bit overboard with the shredding. I agree.
However, sometimes a song just requires a good guitar shred.
Sure. Yeah.
But what's your current guitar setup?
So right now I'm working with Dean Guitars. I just went over to them. They're endorsing me now. So I'm playing the Dean. I forgot the model. I got it right here though, since I'm in my jam room.
Right.
But when I'm playing the Dean, I forgot what they call it, but it's beautiful. Very similar to like a Les Paul shape. So I'm working with Dean now. We've been talking for a while, and they took me on. So I'll be playing these guitars now. 6-string. I used to play 7-string, but I took a break from the 7-string. I've really been into using the Digitech drop tuner pedal lately, which can drop all the strings down digitally, which is really crazy. But I feel like it's better than playing a 7-string nowadays, because the 7-string, that 7th string for the low tunings, it always flops around. It never sounds perfectly in tune. And now that I'm using just a 6-string guitar with the digital tuner for lower tunings, I feel like my tuning is a lot more on point.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously playing metal back in the 90s in bands, and the big thing was 7-string, and I always refused. I'm like, James Hetfield and Dimebag Darrell do not play a 7-string, so I'm not playing a 7-string.
I was the same way. I fought the 7-string thing for years. I didn't want to use it. But then I started doing more low. I personally, I'm not a big fan of low tunings, but my time in Soulfly, we were doing a lot of low tunings. And so it just, and I wanted to do more solos. I was writing more in that band, writing a lot in that band. And so it called for me to start using a 7-string. So by about 2007, I decided I just got to start playing the 7-string, because I wanted to have the higher strings on the guitar to the standard, so I can get up high on the fretboard with standard E tuning, but have that 7th string for the low B tunings.
I mean, you adapt to the music that you're playing in the band that you're playing with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, you'd said Soulfly there. 2003, I think it was, that you joined the band. Yeah. How did you cross paths with Soulfly? How did you get that gig?
Basically, so my first tour ever was El Nino opening up for Soulfly in 2001. But I actually talked to them. I'd never met Max backstage, never even saw him at all at the club. We would do our gig, and then, we'd be basically kicked out of the club, like out of the dressing room area, So never got to meet anyone in the band except for Mikey and Marcelo and Joe Nunez, who play drums. Anyway, so when I quit El Nino in 2002, it was Mike Gitter at Roadrunner Records, who signed El Nino, said, hey, bummed out you quit El Nino, but Soulfly is looking for a new guitar player. So he's like, would you be interested? I was like, yeah, sure. So that was it. It was Roadrunner Records basically made the connection.
Did you have to do an audition?
Not really. It didn't feel like an audition. They flew me out there, and I think we did like 2 or 3 shows on the West Coast in America. And then we went right into the studio and made the Prophecy record. So yeah.
I've got down Prophecy came out 2004, Dark Ages 2005, Conquer 2008, Omen 2010, Enslaved 2011, Savages 2013, Archangel 2015, and Ritual 2018.
Yeah.
That's the albums that you are part of for Soulfly. Of those albums, do you have a personal favourite?
Yeah, I always say Enslaved, because Enslaved, I think everything worked out perfectly. First and foremost, we got to work with my favorite producer, Zeus, who's worked with everybody. And Zeus really like no nonsense kind of dude. He really cracked the whip on everybody in the studio. So we went in there, and I think the collaboration, between Zeus and myself, and we had Dave Kincaid on drums, who everybody loves his drums on that record. And then we had Tony Campos on bass. So just, the combination of all these awesome, talented people, we definitely made, I think, the best Soulfly record. And I think it's unanimous with all the fans. Everyone always says that the Enslaved record is their favorite record. It's just a raging death metal, thrash metal, but still groovy, record that just definitely showcases what the band was at that time.
Yeah, and of course, people do say that the producer is the additional member of the band, the unspoken member. I mean, in your opinion, as a producer, how important is a producer when it comes to a band recording?
I think it depends on the producer. I've worked with producers who didn't do much, but that's the thing with a guy like Zeus, why I always say that Zeus is like my favorite producer to work with. He really didn't put up with no bullshit, and there was a lot of nonsense going on. And he was like, no, we're going to make the best Soulfly record if it kills me, So he really cracked the whip and put his foot down on a lot of situations, and the record speaks for itself. It really showcases, what happens when you get somebody like that in the studio and everyone else involved.
Yeah. And obviously, through that time, Cavalera Conspiracy came around as well. I think that was 2006. So you'd already been in Soulfly for a good few years before Cavalera Conspiracy came around. How was that doing that band? Because there was obviously an extremely big spotlight on that band because the Cavalera brothers have reunited after all these years. What the fans have been asking for years is finally happening. I was one of those people, I was always a fan of the brothers. Sepultura to me, I grew up with the Cavalera brothers. That was the Sepultura, and I loved the idea of them coming back together. I seen them earlier this year, and they were great. But what was it like being part of that, or was it similar to Soulfly simply because you were working with Max on both projects? Just a very quick message to say thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos, like and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the episode and give me some suggestions on who I should interview in the future. Back to the video.
So yeah, basically by the time, I had already been in Soulfly, I think for about 6 years when the brothers reunited. Being a huge Sepultura fan, I took it very, very seriously. When I got word that they were reuniting and starting this new band and I was asked to be part of it, it was like, all right, well, I'm really going to start woodshedding and practicing even more. And I really, at that time, I was really studying a lot of flamenco and classical guitar and putting a lot of effort and not so much into the electric guitar. But when the brothers got back together, it was like, and we were going into the studio to make a record in 2007, it was like, I really need to put a lot more, emphasis on my electric playing. Mostly because, Andreas Kisser is one of my favorite guitar players ever.
Yeah.
Been a huge influence on me, was always my favorite part of Sepultura. Loved everything he did on the old records and even the new records. Specifically, their new record Quadra is freaking amazing, man. That's got some of his playing on it.
Yeah, similar to yourself, though. I always thought his guitar playing was exceptional, but again, a lot of feel. It wasn't just technical ability. He had such a great feel when he was playing that not just the riffs, but the guitar solos. Exceptional guitarist, and I think that's really what made the band.
I agree 100%. For me, as a young guitar player when Sepultura came out, being 13, 14 and coming from Metallica and Slayer and Test thrash bands, you had to have a great thrash metal lead guitar player back in the 80s. That's what I think a lot of the kids nowadays don't understand is that back in the 80s, the only thing that made those thrash metal and death metal bands, I think, listenable for people from that generation was the great. That's what made it memorable, and the melodies on guitar, because the vocals weren't melodic in Sepultura. So Andreas would always add these incredible melodies, that were catchy and had feel, like you said, and were very experimental type of soloing. And for me, that's what really caught my attention with the band was, man, who the hell's that guitar player, man? It's crazy to hear this raging like death metal music, but somebody who knows scales and understands melody and harmonies, and it just blew my mind away. Anyway, I felt the pressure, when I got asked to do the Cavalera Conspiracy. I really felt like, oh man, I'm really my playing's going to be put under a microscope and compared to Andreas. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for Andreas' guitar playing. Again, he's been one of my biggest influences. And I always said, when I even joined Soulfly, I wanted to bring Max back to the thrash, old school Sepultura, doing On a Rise and Beneath the Remains, and we achieved that, so everything I did, I really was always paying homage to Andreas' great guitar playing and his influence on me. So when we made the Cavalera Conspiracy first record, I really spent hours in the studio, late nights, trying to perfect everything on those records. Rhythm.
Have you ever got the chance to meet Andreas?
Yes. Yeah, a couple times. He's always been very cool. The first time I met him was really cool. It was like in 2005. He actually came out to a Soulfly show, which I thought was cool. It was in New York City, which was crazy. And I met him and Derek, and he was so cool to me. And not only cool, but he was also talking to me about how much he enjoyed my first solo record, Colossal Myopia, which blew my mind away that he even heard it. So he's always humble and cool with me, man, from day one.
Yeah, it's an odd one because there's obviously even to this day, there's still two camps: Sepultura camp, Soulfly camp. I was always it wasn't meant to be that they were meant to be together forever, but you got two great bands out of it.
Well, that's the thing. Bands break up that people need to understand is, it sucks. You would love to have that original band, but now you're getting double the music. Soulfly put out all those records all those years, and Sepultura put out all those records. I mean,
earlier this year, I actually saw Sepultura and Cavalera Conspiracy in the same month. Mm. And there wasn't one that was better than the other. They were both outstanding. But it's just the way it was. But obviously, you've played in several bands. See, when it comes to songwriting, how difficult is it and how important is it when it comes to songwriting to be able to put your ego aside?
I don't know. I mean,
or does it depend on the band? Maybe.
I think it's just it depends on the song. What you're trying to you're always trying to write something that fits the song. So I'm always thinking when I'm writing music, I'm always thinking about the fans, the live situation, breakdowns, people slam dancing. So it just depends, I think, on the song, what you're trying to do. For me, like I've said, I admit sometimes I get out of hand with the solos, but that's just that's what I grew up on and what excites me. So yes, at some point, I guess I do have to kind of check. I don't want to say ego, but I got to check my obsession with shred guitar and say, all right, dude, don't go overboard on this section here. Maybe do something a little bit more melodic and simple. So,
do you like the process of songwriting, or are you one of the musicians that your heart lies with performing live?
I love both. And for me, songwriting is very simple. I think I love it so much that I can sit down and write a whole record literally in one day. Like it may not be the best record in the world, but I never run out of ideas. And I say that, I don't mean to say that like with an ego. Like I'm saying it like just because I love the guitar. And the minute I get a guitar in my hand, I just, after 40 years of playing guitar, I love it more every day. So I could sit down and write riffs all day long and write records all day, which is why I think, I was probably so much adored in my time and all the bands I was in, because I never ran out of ideas to give to people.
You're talking about all those bands. You played in Soulfly, Cavalera Conspiracy. There was a wee bit in Misfits, Revenge Beast, El Nino. When you think about a band, what makes a band work? And not in terms of success, but what makes a band function? Does a band need a leader?
Yeah, I mean, very difficult to keep it. That's what people need to realize, is that it's very difficult to get 4 dudes, 5 dudes to live with each other for years and years, and get along. And It's the old saying of too many chefs in the kitchen. I think everyone's got to respect each other, like each other, and the other important thing is keep your wives out of the band. That's important. Your girlfriends, leave everyone, and just get 4 guys in a room to jam. And if you all respect each other as musicians and what everyone brings to the table, I think, you guys are going to be very successful.
Yeah, it is a difficult one because when you think about it, bands, especially bands nowadays, bands are performing for a lot longer. When you think back to the 60s and the 70s, bands would maybe only be a band for 10 years at the most, whereas now you can be in a band for your whole life, your whole professional life. There's very, very few bands that have been going for 30, 40 years where it's the original members. They're always, I think I can maybe name 2 or 3, but most bands there is a lineup change at some point because it is difficult to keep a band together. And I think people don't realise that because they only see the band put out a CD, put out an album. You see the band perform on stage once every 5 years, and you forget about all the hard work that goes in between to keep that band functioning and keep the band together. It's hard work, so I do have a lot of admiration for bands. Even the ones that are just on the go that have only just started 5 years. It's hard work to keep a band going for 5 years, let alone longer than that. It's a tough one, but I mean, obviously you've been part of many bands. Another sort of question similar to that, in your opinion, what does success look like to you?
Yeah, good question. Success, I always say success is definitely in the eye of the beholder. I know people that are doing it and touring the world, and they're not really happy because of what goes on behind the scenes. For me, I love to play guitar, man. Like for me, it's always been about playing guitar and playing guitar to the best of my ability, to the highest level that I can take it for myself. It's 100% about guitar playing for me. So that being said, I don't care if I'm playing in front of 10 people, 10,000 people. I left a band that was doing all the festivals and now I'm playing little, clubs and bars, and you know what? I'm happy. I love it. My favorite part is just playing guitar. And a lot of when I do my solo shows, which is really like my main priority, I just go and play guitar by myself, man, with a backing track, drum and bass. And I love it. It's fun, man. I'll play in front of like 50 people at some little bar, and I'm having the time of my life, man. I know I'm making a little bit of money, and I get to go home to my house and do all the things I want to do in life. So it really is just success is the eye of the beholder, man. It's very perfect.
It's funny. I had Roddy from Faith No More on just a couple of weeks ago. I'd asked him the same question. He flipped it around and asked me what I thought success looked like. And you put money aside. It must be nice being able to get paid for what was essentially your hobby to begin with. And to pay the bills by playing music must be a good feeling. But I had said something to him that he hadn't thought of, but he really agreed with it. And you've kind of touched on this as well. To write music, and if you write music, you'll have friends and family that will listen to it, and it's almost like they have to like it because it's your music. But for you to write music and see it connect with a complete stranger somewhere else in the world, somebody that you don't know, that must be a really nice feeling for you, for Andreas Kisser to say to you, I love that first solo album that you done. That's connected with him as a guitar player, as a music fan himself. There must be something really nice to see it connect with a stranger, to see it connect with someone that was maybe an influence for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, one of the best parts of it is that, when you created something that you yourself really love and enjoy, and then other people latch onto it, that's definitely one of the greatest feelings, and then to go play it live and see people rocking out. It's just, Yeah.
I know that you've done obviously 5 solo albums. What is the plans for we're near the end of the year, so the remainder of this year going into next year, have we got another solo album in the works?
Yeah, I have a whole solo record finished, ready to release. I'm just trying to figure out, do I want to put it out myself? Or is there maybe another label that would be interested? Because I've put out my past records with different labels over the years. But I think I'm probably just going to put it out myself. This past year, I've been releasing singles because it seems like that's the way to go. So I keep dropping singles through DistroKid, which I don't even really know what that means. My buddy helps me with it. But I keep dropping it. It's on YouTube and I think Spotify and all that. I still listen to CDs, so I don't really get all this technology these days. But I am going to make a physical copy, I think, and just release it myself. And it's some of my best music I've ever done, man. I'm really proud of the last couple of years, what I've been doing at home here, where I'm at my little jam spot, where I record all this stuff by myself.
I mean, that's also the beauty of the times that we're in. I remember back in the 90s, I got a Tascam 4-track, and I thought this thing was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward 30-something years, and possibly similar to yourself, I've got almost a professional setup, and
Nice.
and just the little man cave at the side of the house.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of money nowadays to have that kind of setup, and again, obviously, you can release. You can choose how to release music, whether it's Spotify, downloading, streaming, physical copies. But similar to yourself, I'm very much. I understand why people release it to get streamed, to get downloaded, but there is something really nice still. I think about being able to hold up an album and say, I've created this. This is mine. And it's that the thing that I understand why bands will release singles now. It's a lot easier, it's quicker to record, you can stay relevant by doing it every few months. But there is something still really nice about creating an album. And you've gave this album thought, the order that the songs go in, the artwork that goes along with it. It all comes together to create this one product that's came from your mind. It's something really nice about that.
Yeah, and also, I still listen to CDs, and it was the perfect system to record a CD and have it go in a store or people buying at people's shows. I still sell my CDs at my solo gigs, and the best part of is I sell them. I hang out with everybody after my shows at the merch table, and the money goes right to my pocket. It's not getting all dispersed, and disappearing in digital land. So it's still, in my opinion, the way to, if I go to a show to see a band, I'm still buying their CDs for $10. It's a perfect system.
Yeah. And of course, artwork, it's still important. You're selling T-shirts and all that sort of thing as well. It's, you've got to obviously support the band. I think I've got Iron Maiden on. But obviously, before we finish up, Mark, I'd like to ask some fun questions.
Sure.
So I'll ask the question, you tell me what pops into your mind. So imagine you could go back in time, anywhere in the world, big gig, small gig. What is the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
Wow. That's a tough one. Probably off the top of my head, I probably would have wanted to see Jimi Hendrix. He was just so ahead of his time, still is. In 2025, his music still blows my mind away. But just to be there, like in the 60s, man, and just hear what he was doing on the guitar back then, that had just been so foreign and alien-like to everybody. So probably Jimi Hendrix, like at Woodstock or something. That's
fine. Similar question. See if you could go back in time and attend one of your own gigs as a spectator. Is there a specific gig, regardless of the band, is there one that stands out that you go, I would love to have been in the audience to actually watch us perform?
Good question. Probably, I'm going to go with one of my old bands when I was like a teenager back in like 95, 94. I had a thrash hardcore band called Crankcase, and we used to play all over Jersey, and we would do club shows, but we would also do these raging shows outside in the swamps outside New York City. And he worked for an amusement park, so he had access to generators. So we would go out to the dirt bike trails. You know, they were famous parties around my area that, you know, to this day, a lot of people from back then still bring it up. You know, we were called Crankcase, and we would go out to these dirt bike trails outside New York City in the swamps and throw these big raging keg parties. We'd get like 10 kegs of beer and rock out and play raging hardcore thrash metal till 4 a.m, you know? So I would love to bring back up, you know?
Maybe go back in time and see Baby Mark.
Yeah.
That's fine. Obviously, excluding any of the albums that you yourself have performed on, does the perfect album or albums exist start to finish? And if so, what are the albums?
Of my own?
A different band, something that you've not performed on.
Yeah. I'm going to say off the top of my head, because I'm one thing we didn't talk about was I just joined one of my favorite hardcore bands, Marauder. So I would say the first Marauder record, Master Killer, was definitely, like, there's not a bad song on that record, not a bad riff. They were one of the most, you know, in the hardcore world, they're very respected, but around the world, they're so underrated, you know. So I would say Marauder, Master Killer. It's a perfect album.
I'm going to look that up after we've finished talking.
Please do, yeah.
That's fine. As you know, thousands and thousands of great songs written and recorded across the years by different artists, different bands. What's the one song you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness the band record it?
Wow. Good question. I'm going to say probably let's go with like Metallica, you know, maybe Master of Puppets. Yeah, Master of Puppets, I'd say, because just the way they created the guitars and the different sections, you know, the clean sections, the solos, it's just incredible.
I think I would have really enjoyed to see James and Lars put the songs together and present it to Cliff and see what influence Cliff had on the end product.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been cool. And last question for yourself, Mount Rushmore, who is the 4 bands for yourself? It might change daily, but for today, who are the 4 for yourself that are your favourites?
Oh, man. Slayer, Overkill. They're one of my favorites of all time. Jersey. Yep. Slayer, Overkill. Man, this is tough. I mean, definitely old Metallica. I got to put old Metallica in there.
Yep.
But then I also got to put, I'm going to put Biohazard. Biohazard was a huge influence on me as a kid.
Yeah, cool. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming on, answering my questions. You're actually the last guest for season 4.
Nice.
You're closing out season 4, but it's been good to speak to you. For anybody wanting to follow you, you're on social media. They can give you a follow, check out your solo stuff or any bands that you're in as well. I don't know if you're over in Scotland very often, but if you are over here, give myself a shout. We can meet up and I can come and cheer you on if you're playing. Yeah, I'll definitely keep in touch with you. And I should be over there in the summer with Marauder. We have a bunch of festivals booked around Europe. I'm sure we're going to get to the UK. So definitely the next time I'm out that way will be with Marauder. And then last year I went out to Europe. I did a bunch of solo gigs. So I'm trying to get back out there too to do some more solo gigs too. Cool, man. Well, good luck. I wish you all the continued success. I look forward to seeing what you've got coming out. And if you look out into the audience, you might see myself crowd surfing my way towards the stage. Cool. We'll hang out. Cool, man. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you very much.